Okay. Thank you all very much for coming. This is the, we started doing Explore Sundays last year, and we've got 4 of them scheduled so far this year. If you've been someplace interesting you want to share, let me know. We probably won't do it again until like September, October. But anyway, many thanks to Peter for saving my, you-know-what, to get everything working. There's the flyers on your table that tell you when the next Explorer Sunday is, and the next one's going to be a medical one. That's the only one that we're going to charge for because there's supplies that's needed on that, and they also encourage you to bring your first aid kit from your boat. Thank you. And if you need to replenish it, they'll have some stuff available for purchase, and then you can just have them look it over. So they encourage you to bring your first aid kit from your boat. Then, let's see. So this is an encore presentation. I really appreciate that some of you have sat through this. This will be the second time. Basically, our goal is to introduce the Great Loop to you and to share some options, because there's many ways you can do the loop, and to share what our experiences were, some of the lessons that we learned, and then to share a whole bunch of pictures. In the interest of time, I'd like to save your questions until the end, and then we'll open it up to questions. Okie dokie. So, yeah, it works. So, most of you know that we did more than just the Great Loop. We left it in 2000. Well, so we did what's called the Big U. Actually, some friends of ours came up with that program, and that's going from Alaska through the Caribbean to Maine. But of course, we did a W because we went from Alaska through the Caribbean, then up and down and around. So we call that the Big W, and then plus the Great Loop, so we call that the Loop-de-Doop. So some Great Loop basics. The American Great Loop Association, it's greatloop.org, they have a really excellent website, and on that is a cost calculator, because that's always one of the questions, how much is it going to cost? Then they have frequently asked questions, they do webinars, they have a forum, and like most forums, you will find that there are some very opinionated people that don't have, anyway. I'm sure you know the drill. And they have magazine, and they also have harbor hosts. So there are people that are Great Loop members, and they're there to help you when you get, for whatever you need, or if you need a ride to get your laundry done, or you just want to say hi to somebody, or whatever. They also have a group that's associated with them that's selling yachts just to do the loop. And many people buy boats back there. And we know of a couple of boats that have done the loop 3 times, all with different owners. So it's really common to buy a boat back there and then do the loop and sell it. So the Great Loop is actually circumnavigation of the eastern U.S. and, well, goes to move. Change the slide. So, it's a circumnavigation of the East Coast up through Canada and down the Mississippi to this other stuff. And then, so with us, we came into Florida in 2012, but we had some other stuff to do. And then we came over to here, and this is where we officially started and ended the loop, because you have to cross your wake, right? That's what they call it. And the preferred way to go is counterclockwise. And the main reason for that is for currents, and especially going down the Mississippi. You don't want to be going up the Mississippi. And you can start anywhere, you can end anywhere. Nobody's keeping track of you. Well, they kind of are. But, and some people go for 2 weeks and then fly home. For us, we'd never really been to the East Coast that much. We were there vacationing. We weren't just there to do it. I just heard last night that somebody did the loop in 6 months. Anyway, took us 5 years. And that was fast.
Was Ted driving?
Yes, he was.
Piloting, I'm sorry.
So, actually, this is your phone.
Okay. I can sit right here, right?
Yeah.
So these are some of the requirements for doing the loop. Coming out of Chicago, out of Illinois there's a bridge. It's an old railroad bridge. It's one of those turn type, but it's so old, they can't open it anymore. So it's got a clearance of 19'6". And almost anywhere on the loop, you can get by with 5 feet of water. And 250 miles will easily cover you from stop to stop. When I set Panchita up to go cruising, I set it up for 18.7. That's with my antenna down. We draw 4 feet and we carry 700 gallons of fuel. You wanna push the button?
So let's say that the sailboats can also do it. Mostly it's powerboats.
Yeah, it's mostly power boats, but sailboats can do it. Some people just take their masts off, leave them at home and power around. Some of them actually just do part of the loop and they'll come out of Canada and come down to Mobile, and they'll ship their masts down to Mobile and then put on there and then go down to the Caribbean.
How much will it cost?
Oh yeah, this is the cost. Well, the costs totally vary by how much you like to go out to eat, how much you want to be at docks as opposed to anchor. Fuel, yeah. If you, like if you're buying a boat to do this, you probably wouldn't buy a Panchita because it doesn't get that great of mileage, but, you know, fuel is a factor. You have 2 engines, you'll burn more fuel than 1 engine.
So there is a calculator on the Great Loop website. So that'll help you figure out how much the cost is.
Okay, so this is our start to the loop. Joan's back went out in St. Thomas, and she literally couldn't walk 100 feet, so we ended up putting the boat on Dockwise, which that red thing there is the boat, and there you see Panchita in the middle of all the other boats on Dockwise. And we shipped it from St. Thomas up to Fort Lauderdale, left her there, came home, and got Joan's back fixed up. And then we went back and started doing the loop. And if you don't want to do your own boat, you can get one of these cruise boats. They do lots of parts of the cruise. You got the clicker?
Yeah. Oh, I think more than that.
That's yours?
It's back to me. So, how do you figure out the route? Well, for the whole many years that we were gone, the key thing is to figure out where you want to be during hurricane season and where you want to be when it's too cold to be on the boat. And so that's the number one thing. And when, so in this part of the world, you have to be above Brunswick, Georgia. And you can see that cuts over to here, but there's about 31.5 degrees. So you can't be below here before November. So that determines when you leave from Chicago. Because hurricane season, well, I always say hurricane season is whenever your insurance says it is. That hurricane season is from June to November, typically. And then we learned, actually from someone that we met in, the Caribbean, that they have heated warehouses back east. And we'll show you a picture of where it is, but they have generators that will, not go, get knocked out during the storm. So you're guaranteed that the boat's gonna be at a certain temperature for the whole time. And, you don't have to winterize your boat, which as Californians, we have no idea how to do that. And all the horror stories we've heard say, don't do it. So with having those heated warehouses, that makes all the difference as to how you can time out and extend your time at the loop. Otherwise, a lot of people just go up and down and up and down, and once you've been up through Florida, you don't wanna do that too many times. Trust me. Oh, I'll explain why later.
Okay.
So there are lots of guidebooks, and of course now, they have apps. There's lots of apps for the Great Loop. And we always take Auto Club maps and guidebooks wherever we go. And Active Captain, I'd really like more people to use that out here and populate it with information, but in Active Captain, you can go and it's everybody's, everybody inputs to it. So you get a lot of reviews from cruisers of what worked and didn't work there, and it's really a great source. It also does on the West Coast, but not like they do, it doesn't get populated as much as it is back east. And then it's important to note that, so we're ocean cruisers, right? So we think in terms of nautical miles. And so we're going along and I'm calculating the whole thing out, and it's like, this isn't quite working out. What's wrong with my math? Well, of course, the statute mile is 0.86 nautical miles. So I had to do that conversion to figure out how many miles we were gonna travel in a day. Kind of messed me up for a little while. But that's why you go to navigation class, right? And they teach you about statute miles. For us, going 50 miles in one day is a long day.
Yeah.
Mostly we tried to go 20 miles. That's pretty much what we would, when we were gonna move, would go 20 miles. Okay. So compared to some other things we did, really I think this caption, high adventure, low risk, it's, it's pretty accurate. It's because you're in the US where people mostly speak English, and you've got Air Canada, and you've got a rule of law, and so you kind of know what's going on more than like when we were in Mexico or other foreign countries. And so, and about 100 boats a year complete the Great Loop. They keep track. You can get flags, burgees, just like the Yacht Club has burgees. There's one when you're just going, there's one when you've been around once, and then there's another color when you've been around more than once. And let's see. So one thing to remember is that water is pretty much available anywhere you go, usually for free, at a fuel dock. But you can't go out 3 miles and dump your holding tanks. So, unlike when you're cruising in the ocean, the size of your water tank is pretty important. Back there, it's not so much in the holding tank, so it just kind of reverses. And basically, it's calm. You stay inside the lines. You don't go, you're going up a river, and there doesn't have all the current and waves and stuff like the ocean does. And so you just stay inside the lines. And mostly you can do that, except for Georgia's a little tough to do that, and going around New Jersey's a little hard to stay inside. But other than that, you just stay, inside the lines of the canal. So one thing we did to make it kind of interesting was we found the list of the 100 oldest bars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because, that was all, that's how they got around, the waterways, that's how they all connected. And so I think we probably went to 25 or 30 of the 100 oldest bars. So another thing to know is about reciprocals. So there's this book, this American Association of Yacht Clubs, and that's important. So a reciprocal, when you've got your boat, is different than a reciprocal when you're just going to visit and you don't have your boat, because you want to slip. So if you're in this book, it's helpful to get a slip. Every yacht club has let us in, except for the Savannah Yacht Club, because you can only pay, well, they wouldn't even let us pay cash. Savannah Yacht Club, your club has to have a billing relationship with them. Other than that, every yacht club we went to let us in. Yacht clubs are also not necessarily in town where you want to be, so sometimes, we chose to stay in town because that's where we wanted to be, and the yacht club was a little out of town. But the MTOA, the Marine Trawler Owners Association, if you're gonna do this, highly suggest that you join that group. I looked it up, I think it costs $65 or something per year. It's like belonging to a yacht club back there. And one of their members has a marina. So one of the problems that we had is when we wanted to park our boat in a yacht club back there, it says, well, we don't have anybody that's ever gonna take you up on a reciprocal out in California. So no, we're not gonna give it to you for free, but you can come. And then usually we'd go and we might have to pay for the first night. And then they'd kind of like us and say, oh, stay longer. So it usually worked. But with MTOA, we had a friend. He never paid for a slip the whole time he did the loop because he belonged to MTOA and they have at least one marina back there. So it's within distance to do the reciprocal. Then, typical, you have to show your membership card, you have to fly your burgee, take some burgees. The club will give you burgees to do exchanges. We just want you either to bring back another burgee or bring back our burgee. But we'll give you one to do that. Some of them may require a blazer, but mostly they always have a casual bar, so you don't have to wear a blazer. And we never wore a blazer. Laura, and the flag is very good if you need a letter of introduction. The flag will write you a letter of introduction to a yacht club if it's, one of those kind of yacht clubs. The other thing about a yacht club is local knowledge, but also if you can't, Boat US is our towboat. They'll give you local knowledge for free. You just call them on the radio, and many times they told us, especially there's this one little tricky part getting to Marco Island, and they said, be sure to go to the left here, and they were right. So when it's tricky, call Towboat US. And boat cards, everybody carries boat cards with your name, a phone number, where you're from, your boat, a picture of your boat. So yeah, it's Savannah Yacht Club. They're not the nicest. Well, they might be very nice people, but they don't. The other thing about joining MTOA is that it is like so we spent the better part of 2 seasons, the end of one season and the beginning of another season in the Chesapeake. And so every month they have a cruise out somewhere. So we meet up with them. Somewhere. Anyway, we'd meet up with them and go cruising with these guys for a week. And they just like when you go on a yacht club cruise, they have all the mooring, all the facilities set up for you, what they're going to do. Their slips are all taken care of, everything else. So if you're going to do this, and especially in the Chesapeake, MTOA is this in more places, but they're really active in the Chesapeake. So highly recommend MTOA.
Where are we now?
They're up.
Oh, okay. The picture you see up there with the 3 different colors, if you were trying to do the loop in 12 to 14 months, you want to be up in Canada in the red part up there in the summer, and in the fall, you're doing the part down through the middle of the United States, and in the spring, you're going up the green part along the ICW.
Intercoastal waterway.
intercoastal waterway. That's, that's what you do if you're trying to do one continuous loop. Like we said, we did it in 5 years, so, we kinda ignored all those colors. We actually started off in Fort Lauderdale after we came back and Joan's back was fixed up. And we went up to,
Brunswick,
Brun-
Brunswick, Georgia.
no, that was,
Yes. We were on the same trip.
okay, we went up to Brunswick.
Left the boat and we went home and fixed my bathroom.
No, we,
Stand by one. What do you think we did?
I'm talking about, we went from Fort Lauderdale up to Worthington, South Carolina, and then came back down. and
Well,
went
okay,
through
that's the big
Okeechobee.
picture. That we're both right. So we went from Fort Lauderdale to Brunswick, flew home, took care of my back. Then when we got back, we went up to Wrightsville Beach or something like that, and then turned around and came back down.
Well, yeah, we got up to Wrightsville, and
Something like that.
the weather turned cold, so we came back down, and we came all the way down, Florida to the Okeechobee, to Lake Okeechobee there, so we took that little river that cuts off the end of Florida, and that's why we ended up crossing our way in Cayo Costa. But after we cut across the Okeechobee, we went down to Marathon in the Keys and left the boat there for part of the winter, came home, and then we took off and went back all the way up that green part there till we got to the Chesapeake. And we left the boat up in Pleasure Cove in Chesapeake. That was the first heated warehouse we went to. And then we went up, and we actually went out to Maine as a side trip and came back. You have to go up the Hudson River. We went up the Hudson River and got on the Erie Canal and went to Brewerton. That was our second heated warehouse we went to. And then the following year, we went up to Canada, did the canals in Canada, ended up in Grand Haven. And we left the boat in Grand Haven for 9 months because their boating season is from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So we put the boat away in there at the end of Labor Day and flew home. And that was the cheapest warehouse we stayed in, even though the boat was in there for 9 months. And then we came from there, we did Lake Michigan, and we made the whole trip all the way down through the middle of the United States and ended up in Tampa Bay and left the boat there for about a month and came home. So those are, and, oh, and also on the way down, we went to Nashville. So that was another place we left the boat. It was so hot in Nashville, we had to leave, so we took the boat out of the water, had them work on it, and went home, waiting for it to cool down.
So here's in more detail.
Okay, yeah, okay, this is the Chesapeake right there. As you can see, there's just so many waterways you can go up and down, and it was so easy to spend the end of one summer and the beginning of the next summer, and we still didn't see everything. Over here on the very right bottom, this is the Pleasure Cove warehouse, and that's Panchita, the first boat on the right. Panchita is a fairly good-sized boat, so you can tell how big that warehouse is. And they had crab cakes, one of the best things in the Chesapeake Bay. Everybody has the world's best crab cakes. So you have to go everywhere and try them.
And then talk about the rendezvous. The NCOA, the Shaw Bay,
Which?
the Shaw Bay raft.
Oh, the Shaw Bay. That's one of the bays there. They had a big roundup, raft up there. And they had a great group called the Eastern Oyster Boys. And they played music on the back of the boat. There must have been 100+ dinghies tied up around that boat. It was quite a party.
This is what you want to talk about. Go to New York?
Oh. We don't really have time to talk about
Oh.
Okay, well, this is after we did the Chesapeake. We went up to New York, and that's Panchita in front of Statue of Liberty there. We actually took the dinghy off the boat, and Joan got in the dinghy and came over here and got that picture, which is a pretty unique picture. We also spent one night anchored behind the Statue of Liberty. There's a little harbor back there, and we spent one night there when we took off from, we stayed at Staten Island when we were there, because it was one of the few reasonable places to stay. There's marinas on Manhattan Island, but I can't afford them. So we stayed on Staten Island. We took the city bus over, took the Staten Island ferry over to Manhattan, and then spent a couple of days in Manhattan. And then we came back. And then when we took off, we came into, that's the East River on the right side. That's the middle one is the Manhattan Island, and Hudson River goes up the left. Right is the East River, and that goes over to Long Island Sound, which is up on top. And then from there, you go through Cape Cod Channel, which cuts off that part out there where you really don't want to go. That's a big point with a lot of ocean out there. And then the Blamar Canal is where Gloucester is, where they filmed The Perfect Storm. So we came in there and actually went in and had a beer or two at the bar that they showed in the movie. Oh, okay, this is the part up here. You have this upper part has several options. If you come up the Hudson River,
Options in the next one.
what?
The next slide is about the options.
What would you want to cover?
This is just what.
Oh, just what
This
we
is
did?
just, yeah.
Okay, in that part that's circled in red, we actually went up the Hudson River. If I can point it out, I can't even reach it. The Hudson River right there where it says New York, there's a bridge that's 17 feet, so we couldn't go north. We had to take the Erie Canal over west, then we went up to Lake Ontario, and we went out the St. Lawrence Seaway to Montreal, then up to Ottawa, took the Rideau Canal down to Yorktown, then took the Trent Severn Canal over the Georgian Bay in the North Channel, and ended up at Mackinac Island at the top of Lake Huron.
So we have to get the passport, the Nexus thing.
Oh, the Nexus thing. Yeah, we ended up getting a Nexus pass to make entering and exiting easier, but it was so much work to get it, I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah, we had to drive over and get interviewed by Canada and US officials. And then it was good if you were driving a car, but not so much if you were driving a boat. So this is the difference with the clearances.
What?
The clearances of 17 feet.
Oh, okay, yeah, so, part of that thing if you have a boat that'll clear 17 feet, you can go straight up to Hudson, to Lake Champlain, and up to Montreal straight up. And if you can clear 15 feet, when you get on the Erie Canal, you can keep going to Lake Erie, and then you go up from Lake Erie to Lake Huron, but then you miss that part of Canada, which those canals, the Rideau Canal and the Trent Severn Canal, they're worth seeing. The boat now rents spare boats on the Rideau Canal. It's such a popular area. Okay, this is on the left is a lock on the St. Lawrence Seaway. St. Lawrence Seaway is a very commercial seaway, and you can see by the size of the ships in there, they do a lot of commercial business. And then one of the places we went, Bolt Castle is Castle built just a little bit after where we got on the St. Lawrence. And this guy built this castle for his wife. And you can see the castle there, it's right on the point of that island. And she died before he finished it. So he never finished it. But it actually had its own power plant to make electricity that had been installed. And the place was ruined. Apparently, they got a foundation and got some money together, and they cleaned up. It was all full of graffiti and stuff. It was a pretty cool building. And then this building on the right here is the largest wooden structure in Canada. And then there's a great wooden boat museum off the St. Lawrence. You just pull into the harbor there. You can spend the night and walk over to the museum. And those are bugs all over the back of Panchita, which are no fun. And that's a sign for the Erie Canal up on the very top.
The St. Lawrence those are big canals and commercial, unlike a lot of the locks that we went through, like on the Rideau, and they're more pleasure craft oriented. These are for those big boats, and you're not always gonna get through as soon as you think you or hope you might get through. But you can do it, it's doable, but it is a little bit different than a lot of the other locks. Like these locks. The Rideau was actually built because, during the War for Independence from Britain, the loyalists to Britain went to Canada, and they were afraid that the U.S. would cut off the St. Lawrence, so they built the Rideau Canal. So it's what year was that built? A long time ago. It was like and actually it didn't get finished before the troubles of British.
This is in the 1700s.
Yeah, it's in the 1700s. So go ahead, you can talk about this.
Okay, this is our part where we actually went up to the Rideau Canal. We went, let me get this in the right order. We went from Montreal to Ottawa, and Ottawa, there's what they call the 8 steps. And on the top right corner, those are all locks, one after the other. You go in there, they raise you up. You go to the next one, they raise you up. And you end up right here in this picture with all the boats along the side. That's the top of those locks there. We met a couple there who live in Seattle who just bought a boat. And I think it's actually the front boat right there, the Billy Ray. And that's them right there. After we met them, we cruised with them for several months. We stopped there to have breakfast. And that tree, that's a Dollar Tree sign, and in Canada, the Dollar Tree is $1.25 because of the exchange rate.
And the friends that we met, you do that when you're cruising. You see somebody at the first stop, and you sort of recognize them, then you see them the next stop, and then you have a conversation with them, and by the third stop, you're old friends. And so Todd and Linda, we actually have gone to, on a river cruise in Russia with them, after this, obviously. And then this September, we're going to go up to the Pacific Northwest with Mark and Allie, and that's where their boat is, and they're gonna come out and meet us and cruise with us for the weeks that we're up in the Pacific Northwest. So you really, a friend of ours calls us infinity friends, because you go off, you do your own thing, you come back around, meet up, it's like you never, were separated and just join back up again. You wanna talk about that,
Well,
that anchor?
yeah, our friends took that picture. That's a wad of seaweed I pulled up with the anchor after we were anchored one night. And then there's one picture here next to the picnic table. That's something they do in Ottawa on the streets. That drill motor runs a potato through a slicer and makes a big curlicue out of it. And then they, put it in oil and fry it.
When you go through the locks, there's a price for going through the locks, and then there's a price for staying overnight on your boat in the locks. It's not very expensive, but they separate it out like that. And when it was their 100th anniversary a couple of years ago, they didn't even charge you, I don't think for either, of course, that's not when we were there, but they didn't charge you for staying at the locks, so it's pretty reasonable, and it's in Canadian dollars.
Okay, this is some of the locks, one of the really interesting locks. The most locks, they have like you saw in the other picture, they have a gate in front and a gate in the back. You go in and then they lower the water and you go through. Well, this one up here, the Petersboro lock, is actually a giant bathtub. And what you're looking at the end there is a door, a gate. And what they do is, you're coming from the right side, you go in there, and then they close the back gate, and they actually lower that whole tub with the boats in it to the level of the water on the left side of the picture there. And then they open the gate up, and then you come out of that lock. And this picture in the middle shows that they've got two big hydraulic rams with water in them. And all they do is put a little more water in the upper one, and it just comes down and raises the other one. So it works pretty simply. And then this other one here on the right is called the Big Chute. And that's a couple we met in that boat there. They're from San Diego. They took that boat from San Diego over and did the big Great Loop, and then sold the boat over on the East Coast. But that boat is sitting on that picture there in the middle. On that thing has wheels on it, and it comes up one side and comes down. It comes down the left side there.
But you can see, this is a 40-foot boat. Those are his props hanging out the end of the lock of this thing here. So we asked, everybody says, that's okay, you guys, we're 46, a little bit bigger. You can go up to 60. I said, it's okay, they'll take you, no problem. So, anyway, go ahead.
Well, what they did here, the picture on the right, there was this boat in front of us, then they let 10 jet skis in on the thing. And then the guy says, okay, your turn, you drive in there. Yeah, and it gave me about a foot on each side. And then I drove in and they lifted it up, and the one side is just goes up slightly. Then the other side is that ramp over there coming down. Matter of fact, that's Billy Ray right there, coming up after they came off the chute.
And then at all the locks, they have these two red chairs that have the best views ever. Yeah, we are. So,
Okay. Is it me or you?
I'll take it. So, this is, getting up through Lake Michigan and going to Mackinac Island, and of course, the best part of that was that Bob, whose parents live in Travis City, he came up and he showed us where all the bars were. And he took us to the favorite bar tour, so that was really fun.
Bob came over at 8 o'clock in the morning on a ferry, and we started bar hopping until 3 in the afternoon when he had to catch the ferry back.
Wanna do that? This is Sturgeon, this is Lake Michigan, and going up into, crossing Lake Michigan, which, we've heard horror stories. We've heard horror stories about crossing Lake Michigan, and, so we were gonna go up a little bit, wait, and then cross over, but we started heading out, and the weather was so good, we just crossed over, and it was flat calm. Interesting, in the middle of the lake, we got attacked by a whole bunch of bugs again, just like you saw in that one picture. But by the time we got to the other side of the lake, bugs were gone. And then we got in and we were just gonna go a little bit the next way. Well, we couldn't even get out of the harbor. I mean, we did get out of the harbor and then just ducked it back in like 10 miles up because the seas were so, not even an ocean, the lake was so rough. So, if you're ever in Green Bay, there's a great Green Bay Yacht Club. And they are a friendly little club. They are just really enjoyable, and highly recommend you go to Green Bay Yacht Club. And then this is Door County. There's an Egg Harbor city in Door County. Our boat's in Egg Harbor, but that's the Egg Harbor from New Jersey. But Egg Harbor, New Jersey they don't sell t-shirts in Egg Harbor, New Jersey, so we bought a bunch of t-shirts from Egg Harbor. But they're really known to do these fish boils. It's really beautiful country. The people are wonderful. It's really nice. You can drive, obviously you can drive to, through Door County, but to go up to Washington Island, you go on a boat, or you either go on a ferry or you go on your own boat. You wanna do this?
Okay, yeah, so that's us, tied up in Washington Island. It's just a nice place to visit. They built this replica of a 1100 church back in 1995. And it's built with no wooden or no steel nails. It's all built with pegs, all wooden and wooden pegs. And they have a shop there where we bought some smoked fish, and they only have a little bit. So if you want more, you call up and they put it on the ferry and they bring it over the next time the ferry comes over. This is Chicago. After we came down from Door County, we stopped off at
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee was a big place. Then we ended up in Chicago, and the great yacht club there is the Columbia Yacht Club, and they bought that ferry in Canada. That's a ferry boat, and it actually has railroad tracks in the bottom of it, because it used to carry trains across a waterway up in Canada. Well, they brought it down here. That's their grand stairway there. We did dinghy exchange, and that's looking from a top floor down on Panchita. This is a really fun club, and they've got the bar from, you know, when you're on the ferry, people went to bar. They've got a fabulous bar it's just made out of big, thick oak beams and sculptured things. It's just outstanding.
If you're in Chicago, you can go to this yacht club. We recommend it. Because we did the Virgie exchange, we're on their list. There was, in the Lions Club, they've been there to this yacht club. It's a great place to watch 4th of July, or any fireworks that they have in Chicago. You've got a great view right to the Ferris wheel on the Navy Pier. Okay, so now, we're gonna head down the river system, which everybody looks forward to this, right? Talks about going down to Mississippi. Doesn't that sound like a great fun time? Wrong. It is our least favorite part of the whole trip, the Mississippi part of it, because we'll get there. But anyway, because you can, if you're under 17 feet, you can get through the bridges in downtown Chicago, but if you're over that, then you have to go to the sanitary canal. But one of the great things about going through this part of the country is that almost all of the marinas have a courtesy car. They let you borrow them. I mean, can you imagine someone in California letting you borrow a car? Well, they figure they've got your boat, so you're just getting their crappy old car. And in one case, they even gave us a seat. It was near a battlefield, a Civil War battlefield. So we borrowed the car for 4 hours. They gave us the CD.
It was 4 hours one way
Yeah.
to drive there.
So.
Oh, okay, this is
the shit happens story.
This is after we, you see Chicago up there, that lower yellow route is what they call the sanitary canal. And that has higher bridges and stuff to get through, so we went that way. Just off the bottom of that map is this picture here. This is the railroad bridge that no longer opens. And when we went through there was like 20.5 feet of clearance. So we had almost 2 feet of clearance. That red square on the sanitary canal there, that's an electric fence, electric field going through the water. Because you see that picture up there, those are those Chinese carp that are invading, and they're trying to keep them from getting into the Great Lakes. Those 3 fish right there just jumped into the cockpit of our boat while we were traveling up the river.
That happened more than once.
And when we got under this bridge, in a little bit, we had to stop and wait for a tugboat to move a barge. And while we were sitting there waiting, we sucked up a plastic bag, overheated our engine, and this is our new buddy Jim. He's a Detroit diesel mechanic locally there. That's his truck up on top, a really fancy truck. He put a new head on our engine, new exhaust manifold, and had us going in 2 days after $5,000.
Well, and also when we had a rebuild done here, we needed some parts and they were having problems finding the parts here, so he helped us locate parts in Colorado. I just gotta say about this bridge, I mean, every cruiser knows about this bridge. We met this really nice guy from the Army Corps of Engineers, and then it tells you in the guidebook, you know, how to calculate to get underneath this bridge, because it's not the same air height every day. It depends on the dam down below, and you have to do this whole calculation. Well, we couldn't find it, so we called this nice guy up and say, you know, how do we do this? He says, it's not my part of the world, but I'll forward you to the guy whose part of the world it is. So this guy sends us, you know, a whole page full of how to calculate it and why it is and blah, 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 blah. And they said, so that's a problem for you guys? You don't know that? And so anyway, they said, well, when you go by, would you take a picture for us? Because we don't have any clue that that's a problem for you. Well, not only is it a problem for us, but it's a problem for all of the tugboats, because they can't get under there either. So they get under, they get close, they push the barge through. There's a tugboat on the other side waiting, it catches the barge, and off they go.
And the Army Corps didn't know this.
Did not know that. Okay, so this one.
How it goes is this.
Okay, this is nothing important, but this Olson dam and lock, they've been building it for 30 years, and it's cost $3 billion. It was one of those great government projects that they started building it, and what they were building didn't work. They redesigned it and rebuilt it, and we ended up going through the locks there. Actually, right there, we're going behind tugboat Ozzie, and the reason that's important is because we bought our boat from Ozzie Kids. And this is just stuff on the river. That's St. Louis, the big arch. There's a guy in the back of a tugboat barbecuing. That's some guy showing us a big fish he caught.
So why you don't like the Mississippi is, one, we were there and it was really hot. Two, they tell you, again, I told you we go like 50 miles a day is a long day for us. They say, well, you can usually go 75 miles a day. What they don't tell you is that you have to go like 100, because there are so few places that you can tie up your boat for the evening. You can't pull to the side of the river, because if one of these barges breaks loose, they're not gonna know that you ever got hit. So you just don't pull over the side of the road. We'll show you, so I'll show you now. So these are what and so St. Louis, there's not a pleasure craft dock in St. Louis. Really. I think there is now, but there wasn't then. Across from St. Louis is what anyway, there's barges just stacked like 8 wide, miles long of barge, but no place to park your boat. So they have these docks that are barges.
Old barges.
Then they just put these old barges together, and again, that's what you do, is you tie up to these old barges. There are 3 of those places. Everybody knows those 3 places, and you go until you get to one of those places. There's this one, Bobby's Restaurant. That's a 100-foot boat. So this is like, the whole dock is maybe 150 feet long. So we were tied up like 4 boats deep, and there were 3 of us on the dock, and then this guy comes in. So then there's 2 of us on the dock, and this guy, where you can see his bow over that into the rear cockpit of that other boat. But that's what you do. That's what you do. This is what a barge looks like at night. This is from, you can tie up at some of the barge operators. If you do this, there are different service companies that have offer services to different parts of the river, to the barges, the tugboat operators. And if you need help, and sometimes they will let you tie up where they do. So anyway, look how far out we are in the river there. And then this is what they look like at night. There's a couple of places we were able to get into the little side things, but then when you come out of those, you've got to be very careful, because again, the barge is coming. And we didn't have AIS. This is the only part of the whole thing that AIS would have been a benefit. But we had AIS on our computers, on our phones, so we were okay. But with radar, you can't see. Well, here. Is this the next one? No.
Oh, you
I'll-
went past
I'll-
that one.
Huh?
We went past that one.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to do this one? Cumberland River?
Oh, the Cumberland River, yeah. We took that to Nashville, and, up there, we stayed in the marina. Most of those are fishing boats. And we called the guy up and said, you know, can we tie our boat up? We showed up, and that's his whole office door. You can see the top of Panchita sticking over the top of it and out both ends of the place. It was a fun place to stay, and, well, there's nothing much of it. There's a prison there, and we pulled Panchita out of the water, had some work done there.
This is the one. This is the business about why you need AIS. You have to go through this. You go there and around and come back and around, and it's really crazy. And these boats, you can't see them on your radar. And, so you need to make contact with them, that if you don't know they're there, you know, and size matters. And so they have a thing called one whistle or two whistles.
So, yeah, if you need to pass one of these barges, or the tugs with the barges, they got like 15 barges with one tug pushing it. And they go slower than we did. So if you wanted to go by, you had to call the guy and ask him if he wanted to do a one whistle or a two whistle pass. One whistle you went to his port side, and two whistles you went to his starboard side. And anyway, then once we got through the river system, the one thing is, the Mississippi's over there on the left. You don't go down the Mississippi itself. After you get through St. Louis, you take the Ohio River over and get on the Tennessee River, because that's all recreational boating. There's virtually no recreational boating on the Mississippi in that whole left part there. So this is where we came into Mobile, Alabama, and it was quite a sight. The ship up there, the stealth ship, I'd never seen those before. They had 10 of them lined up there, because they build them right there in Mobile. And then we had this dolphin that came and met us, and Nancy and Daryl, that's where she did her training on that Coast Guard vessel right there. And then a really great place to go was Pensacola. They had the Navy Air Force Museum there. Okay, so I'm doing a great loop. There's only like one spot that you can't really do, you know, just travel during the day. Well, you can, but it's more difficult to do. And this is the part coming from the Panhandle over to the mainland of Florida, to Tarpon Springs. We've done a lot of night passages, so we took the route straight across. You leave like 2 in the afternoon, run all night, and then when it's daylight, you pull into Tarpon Springs. And there are people who are actually afraid to do that, so they go around that red area around the perimeter. And that's just a nice church in Tarpon Springs, and that's a homemade anchor there out of rebar somebody made.
They have a lot of those. If we have time, we can tell you a Sylvia story, but we don't have time.
This is the last page.
This is it.
This is the last page, yes. So there's our yellow looper flag we get for finishing the loop. That's where we left our boat in Tampa. The Coral Ridge Yacht Club. The woman that ran the marina there used to be a member here many, many years ago in sail. When we left Florida, that center picture there, that's Panchita being picked up and put on a freighter to take her trip home. And then that's well, after we got home, we had to have the engine rebuilt, and that's the pistons with the connecting rods. We ran 1,100 miles with those bent connecting rods. And after everything got done, we went back to Avalon in that bottom right-hand picture.
Ta-da, that's it. So I guess we have time for a few questions.
You had mentioned in one of the locks, you could spend the night in a lock. Did it take that long to
No,
get
we're
from
not
one
in the
section
lock.
to the next?
No, we were by the side of the log, it's because to sightsee, to see the cities.
Oh, okay,
No,
okay.
yeah,
You weren't actually in the lock, you were either just before or after.
Yeah.
right,
Right.
right. Yeah.
What about speed limits?
Well, there's no wake, that's one of the reasons that Florida is such a pain to go through, is because there's a lot of no wake zones. And they have a lot of bridges, and we didn't fit underneath all those bridges, so you have to wait for the bridge to open. And they time them pretty good, but you have to wait for the bridge to open. And, so, I mean, you're inside, so, you're not going 30, 40 miles an hour,
Well, the ICW has a lot of speed limits, but the rest of the rivers, you can go as fast as you want.
But in the intercoastal waterway, it's like no wake in most of it, or?
in Florida.
In parts of
especially.
it, where you get into the cities,
Oh,
then
okay.
they're almost all 5 miles an hour.
Right.
When you're out of the cities, it's open speed limit. You get people come up with fast boats, and they'll call you on the radio and tell you they're gonna pass you fast. It's just so you can get ready for the wake, cause there's nothing you can do. The wake's gonna hit you.
Right.
So why were you so negative about the Mississippi?
Because it's hot, you have to travel 100 miles, you don't know if you're gonna get through the lock or not. We've heard people have to wait for up to 4 days to get through a lock, and there's no place, I had read all the Tom Sawyer stuff, and Truman, and Lincoln. You can't stop in any of those towns, there's no pleasure crafts places to stop in those towns. So that's why a lot of people have taken cruise ships on the Mississippi, and most of them aren't so happy because there's no place to stop. The places to stop on the Mississippi are the upper part of the Mississippi, above where
The Illinois River.
above the Illinois River. So we would have had to have turned and gone north, and we didn't want to do that
Against the current.
against the current. But there's 30 locks in the upper part of the Mississippi. In the middle part of the Mississippi, I think there are 3 or 4, and in the bottom part, there are none. So, so actually, because we couldn't do the upper Mississippi when we were on Panchita, we went back on an American Cruise Line cruise to do the upper Mississippi. Well, it really wasn't much fun, because most of those towns have been deserted, or they're really poor area. American Cruise Line is not my ideal of a good, usually we go on Viking. American Cruise Lines, I didn't really like them so well. It was just, and
Here's another question.
so, go ahead.
Keep going if you want. If you were to go to Quebec City, you said you drove there.
Right.
So the St. Lawrence, like you don't wanna go around Maine, right? You don't wanna go out in the ocean around Maine.
Yeah.
Does the St. Lawrence come down to, like,
Well, that's
Yeah,
where,
we could have gone to Quebec,
we could have gone to Quebec
except we rented
City.
a car and drove, it was easier.
Yeah, and there's,
you could have taken the St. Lawrence River up to Quebec, or no?
Yeah,
Yeah.
from Montreal, yeah.
yeah.
So if a
But we
person
were
wanted to
visiting
do-
relatives in Montreal, so we just
So if
drove.
you wanted to take Florida up to Quebec City, if that was your route, you could do that without having to go out around in the
Right,
ocean.
right.
Because of the,
Intercoastal's most of the way?
Yeah.
Or some sort of canal, or would you be out in the open ocean?
No, you could go, the way we went, you know, you take the intercoastal up, off of New Jersey, you have to go outside because the intercoastal waterway isn't dredged in New Jersey,
Okay.
and it's less than 4 feet in places. But once you go up the Hudson River, you either do what we did, take the Erie over to the Oswego, or if you can get under a 17-foot bridge, you can go straight up to the St. Lawrence Seaway to Montreal and then up to Quebec.
Got it, okay, thank you.
Grounding.
Well, yes, if you say you haven't, that's what
You
they
haven't been
say.
voting.
Then you haven't been voting. So, that's why you definitely need to have a towing package. We grounded twice. Once, when we got the boat off of the dockwise, so the first thing we did was went aground. Because we were going up there was a confluence of the New River and the intercoastal and this, and intercoastal markings have a different little marking on them than the other, than other rivers. So anyway, we were looking at it and said, well, no, that didn't work out, so, but
Well,
we renewed.
I was able to back off of that one.
Yeah,
But up in
New Jersey.
New Jersey, we're coming in and, it's blowing like crazy, and I'm trying to stay between the red and green markers, and we ran aground, and I called up, Boat US, and he says, where are you? And I told him, he said, well, oh yeah, I know exactly where you are. They just dredged that area, and they didn't put the buoys back in the right place.
Oh, no.
Okay.
So that one wasn't my fault.
Oh.
Well, okay, he's being nice and not saying, he said to go left and I said to go right, so we went right, and that's why we went around too. So, okay, well, that's it, thanks very much for coming. We appreciate it. So mark the calendars for March 10th, that should be a really good, medical at sea kind of thing. A little bit of CPR, and wound care and boat emergencies, and then bring your own first aid kit, and so you can just have these folks evaluate it, or maybe figure out what you need in it, and there'll be some things for sale.
And most importantly, I think they're going over the AICD that our clubs just got, so that'll be useful for everybody to have something.
They're doing the what?
The AICD,
What's that?
they're gonna have,
Defibrillator thing?
The heart, they're gonna have it in the club now, and so they'll go over that in the medical emergency.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
great, all right, well, thanks very much. Oh, the ship store is open, so it's all grouped by sizes today. So all you have to do is look at your size,